Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's start with the top stories that made headlines in the fourth week of September. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, in his keynote speech at the 80th United Nations General Assembly, introduced an initiative aimed at promoting peace on the Korean Peninsula, emphasizing the country's commitment to contributing to broader regional stability and global security. For the first time ever, a South Korean president has chaired a United Nations Security Council meeting. President Lee Jae-myung presided over the session, which focused on the role of artificial intelligence in international peace and security. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, has revised South Korea's economic growth outlook upward to 0.9% for this year. The move reflects the IMF's view that the government's recent accommodative policies, including increased spending, are expected to support near-term growth, while also highlighting long-term challenges such as an aging population. President Lee Jae-myung, in his debut address to the General Assembly, unveiled a new initiative to ease tensions on the Korean Peninsula and declared what he calls South Korea's complete return to the international stage. Our senior presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min files his report from New York.
A new initiative to end confrontation on the Korean Peninsula was among the overarching themes during the first UN speech by South Korean President Lee Jae-myung.
교류, 관계 정상화, 비핵화, 즉 END를 중심으로 한 포괄적인 대화로 한반도에서의 적대와 대결의 시대를 종식하고 평화 공존과 공동 성장의 새 시대를 열어가야 합니다.
By that, he meant expanding inter-Korean exchanges, seeking efforts to advance inter-Korean relations as well as the relationship between North Korea and the U.S., while seeking realistic and rational solutions to achieve denuclearization. President Lee revisited his three-stage roadmap involving halting, reducing, and dismantling North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. He once again made it clear that Seoul is not pursuing any form of unification by absorption. And his debut on the world's major stage for multilateral diplomacy meant more than just that.
저는 오늘 세계 시민의 등불이 될 새로운 대한민국이 국제사회에 완전히 복귀했음을 당당하게 선언합니다.
He was referring to Korea's recovery from the martial law incident last December, adding that the resilience of Korea's democracy not just belongs to Korea but to the entire world, in tandem with the UN spirit. He also laid out his vision for the use of AI that can contribute to the universal values of humanity, which will also top the agenda for the UN Security Council open debate on Wednesday local time, led by a South Korean leader for the first time. During his roughly 20-minute speech on Tuesday, he mentioned Republic of Korea 33 times. And here at the UN General Assembly, the South Korean leader did not forget to mention K-culture, saying it connects people all over the world beyond borders, language, and cultural differences, stressing universal empathy and solidarity. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang, New York.
After addressing the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, President Lee Jae-myung held bilateral meetings with world leaders at the UN headquarters. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports from New York.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung is making the most of the UN General Assembly's high-level week, often described as the world's biggest stage for multilateral diplomacy. President Lee held a series of one-on-ones with world leaders on Tuesday at the UN headquarters. His first meeting was with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. National Security Advisor Lee Seong-rak told reporters that the UN chief voiced support for the president's North Korea policy, the END initiative, short for Exchange, Normalization, and Denuclearization, which he laid out in his address to the General Assembly.
Secretary General Guterres conveyed his hope that the initiative will contribute to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. We will work to build a framework where exchange, normalization of relations, and denuclearization can all reinforce one another through inter-Korean dialogue and North Korea-U.S. talks.
President Lee in turn stressed that security on the Korean Peninsula is inseparable from global stability, the very mission of the United Nations. Lee also met with Uzbekistan President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Czech President Petr Pavel.
We held discussions on practical cooperation directly tied to our businesses and economic growth, focusing on achieving results that people in both countries can feel in daily life.
With Pavel, the $18 billion nuclear power plant deal signed in June was highlighted, and the two leaders agreed to expand their strategic partnership to semiconductors, electric vehicles, and defense. Talks with Mirziyoyev explored ways to elevate South Korea and Uzbekistan's special strategic partnership with a particular focus on mineral resources and transportation infrastructure. Now, more bilateral meetings are lined up for Wednesday, President Lee's last day at the UN General Assembly. The presidential office previously said that President Lee will also be sitting down with the leaders of France, Italy, and Poland. 송유진, 아리랑뉴스, New York.
President Lee Jae-myung chaired a UN Security Council open debate for the responsible use of AI, a first for any South Korean leader. This was a reflection of the growing need to address the issue together with the international community. Our senior presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports from New York.
In a time of emerging technology coupled with growing uncertainty, an international dialogue on AI took place at a major platform for multilateral diplomacy. As chair of a UN Security Council open debate, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung started off the session by explaining the significance of the gathering.
오늘날 인공지능 기술의 발전은 우리의 일상을 변화시키는 것을 넘어 국제적인 안보 환경까지 급격하게 변화시키고 있습니다. 이제 인공지능이라는 새로운 위협과 도전에 걸맞는 새로운 거버넌스를 모색해야 될 때입니다.
South Korea assumed the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council this month, and Lee is the first South Korean president to preside over the debate as chair. Drawing a parallel between AI and a tiger cub, President Lee urged the need to use AI to benefit humanity, not to harm it. He called for international unity to uphold the principle of responsible use of AI and emphasized the role of the Security Council, as well as Korea's contribution.
대한민국은 글로벌 책임 강국으로서 AI가 인류의 지속 가능한 미래를 만드는 훌륭한 도구가 될 수 있도록 국제사회와의 협력을 주도하는 길에 앞장설 것입니다.
The wake-up call was echoed by world leaders, including the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, noting the recent establishment of an international scientific panel on AI and a global dialogue on AI governance by the General Assembly.
I will soon launch an open call for nominations for the scientific panel. I also call on governments and stakeholders to engage fully in the global dialogue and to shape inclusive, human rights-based global norms.
Wednesday's session was organized under the theme of artificial intelligence and international peace and security. More international discussions on the future of AI will be held next month, when South Korea hosts the APEC leaders meeting in the city of Gyeongju. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang, New York.
On Wednesday, President Lee Jae-myung became the first Korean leader to chair a United Nations Security Council debate, putting artificial intelligence at the center of global security discussions. To discuss the significance of this moment, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young with us in the studio. Welcome, Soo-young.
Hi, Sujin.
So, Soo-young, we saw President Lee Jae-myung chairing the UN Security Council debate. Let's begin with what the session was about and why it's important.
Sure, Sujin. So on Wednesday local time, President Lee Jae-myung chaired the Security Council's open debate on artificial intelligence and international peace and security. Now, I'd say it's significant for two reasons. First, symbolically, this was the first time a Korean head of state presided over a council session, which really underscores Korea's elevated status in global governance. That's according to former OECD policy analyst Chung Ji-eun, who heads an AI-powered regulation tech firm in Seoul.
We have UNSC chairing opportunity right now. It's 80th anniversary for the UN General Assembly. And then we have obviously next month APEC happening in Korea as well. So a lot of spotlights can be given to the President Lee. And the fact that he has cleverly and timely chosen AI as a topic, I think is a great opportunity because AI is obviously a great, technical advancement, but at the same time can be a threat in security and peace.
Second, the subject itself is important. AI has become one of the defining issues of our time, from autonomous weapons to cyber defense and disinformation. The way AI is deployed can directly affect peace and security. Questions posed in the debate were how AI can be harnessed to promote peace and security, along with the role of the Security Council to support the technology's responsible application. By bringing these issues to the Security Council, Korea upgraded the discussion on global peace and security, really pushing for multilateral cooperation to build rules and norms on emerging technologies. Now, I'd say this came rather crucially at a time when larger powers are divided in geopolitical tension and rivalry. That's also according to international relations expert Park Won-gon.
In this kind of a context, our President Lee Jae-myung's leading role in the AI is very important because we could not see any kind of continuity dialogue about how to restrain, limit the AI because AI is such a powerful mean and powerful mechanism to change the human histories.
And South Korea has been making various efforts to strengthen global dialogue on AI governance.
That's right, Sujin. So President Lee's session really highlights the country's unique efforts to set standards on the all-pervasive technology, as rapid advances in AI presents both opportunities and challenges for international peace and security. Seoul hosted the AI Safety Summit last year, bringing leaders together to establish that progress in AI should empower humanity. They adopted the Seoul Declaration that sets out safety, innovation and inclusivity as key pillars in AI development. On the security front, where Seoul's been leading, Korea co-hosted two summits with the Netherlands on the responsible use of AI in the military domain to develop global frameworks for the ethical application of AI in defense. Also very significantly, the two countries last year jointly tabled the first ever resolution on military AI, which was adopted with overwhelming support from 165 countries.
So the president will continue the AI conversation when Korea hosts APEC next month, right?
That's right. At the APEC meeting in Gyeongju, AI will once again be a headline issue, but framed rather differently. While the UN debate this week focused on security risks and governance gaps, APEC will look at digital trade, innovation, and standards for AI in the economy, bringing together not only heads of state, but also global business leaders at the CEO summit. According to the Foreign Ministry, Korea is drafting the APEC AI initiative, which will outline a shared regional vision on innovation-driven growth, also strengthening capacity for AI transformation and encouraging sustainable investment in AI infrastructure.
I think more discussion needs to be happening in order for us to move forward with the global standardization of AI. I think with this APEC, if President Lee and Korea can come up with something concrete, such as like last time there were other countries coming up with APEC travel cards, or any of the specific tariff negotiation on environment, any of specific concrete thing can come out of that meeting, it will be a really important one.
So it looks like all eyes will be on the next major leaders conference taking place in Korea's Gyeongju next month. So thanks for coming in today, Seo.
Thanks for having me, Sujin.
President Lee Jae-myung met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to discuss ongoing trade negotiations between South Korea and the U.S. Our top office correspondent Song Yu-jin has the details.
President Lee Jae-myung and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, one of the leading voices of the Trump administration's tariff strategy, met on Wednesday at South Korea's permanent mission to the United Nations. According to the president's chief of policy, Kim Yong-bum, Lee focused on South Korea's pledged $350 billion investment package, a key part of the negotiations to lower U.S. tariffs.
President Lee said he hopes the negotiations will move forward based on commercial rationality and in a way that benefits both countries. He also explained that South Korea differs significantly from Japan in terms of economic scale, foreign exchange reserves, and financial infrastructure, factors he hopes will be considered.
Trade talks have stalled over how that package should be structured. Washington is pushing for most of the investment to be made in cash, similar to the deal it reached with Japan, while Seoul prefers guarantees and loans to help ease its financial burden. $350 billion would account for more than 80% of South Korea's foreign exchange reserves. Japan, by contrast, holds more than double that amount and maintains a currency swap line with the United States. Because of that difference, President Lee has voiced concerns over a heavily equity-based investment without safeguards such as a currency swap.
Unlimited currency swap is a basic prerequisite. Without it, the shock to our economy would be far too great, such as a potential foreign exchange crisis that the president mentioned. If that issue isn't resolved, we simply can't move on.
Kim said Secretary Besson responded by promising to discuss those concerns with the relevant agencies. Now, with South Korea's auto exports continue to face 25% tariffs compared to 15% for Japan, following Tokyo's deal with Washington, eyes are on how Seoul will conclude a trade agreement that is, quote, rational, mutually beneficial, and is in the national interest. 송유진, 아리랑뉴스, New York.
Before President Lee Jae-myung wrapped up his trip to New York, he made one final stop at the New York Stock Exchange, where he sought to track more global investment. Our correspondent Song Hee-jin reports.
This is South Korean President Lee Jae-myung ringing the iconic opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange on Thursday. At the world's largest stock exchange by trading volume and the oldest on Wall Street, President Lee hosted the Korea Investment Summit, where he urged heavyweight financiers and business leaders to invest more in South Korea. The key topic was the so-called Korea discount, a term describing how South Korean companies are often undervalued compared to their global peers. President Lee cited geopolitical tensions on the Korean peninsula as a major cause.
남북 대치, 군사적 대치 때문에 오는 불안정성, 이로 인한 저평가, 휴전 중인 나라인데 또 군사 밀도도 높고 혹시 무슨 일 생기지 않을까?
Highlighting North Korea's advances in missile technology, Lee emphasized his three-stage roadmap of nuclear suspension, reduction, and eventual denuclearization. He once again described U.S. President Donald Trump as the only one capable of brokering such a deal, a peacemaker, while pledging that South Korea will act as a pacemaker supporting the process. The president also outlined measures to make South Korea's investment environment more transparent and trustworthy, including stricter action against stock manipulation and unfair trading practices, and further amendments to the Commercial Act to better protect minority and individual investors. Regarding foreign investors, Lee pledged to resolve issues that many of them see as barriers to entry.
핵심은 역시 이제 요게 환거래 시장 문제라고 제가 들었습니다. 그 문제도 저희가 아주 빠른 시간 내에 저희가 또 해소할 생각입니다. 지금 외국환 거래 시장도 지금 시간 제한이 꽤 있는데 그 시간 제한을 거의 없애는 방향으로.
Currently, South Korea's foreign exchange market operates from 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. the following day, and the Korean won lacks a full offshore trading market. While Lee is the fourth South Korean president to host such an investment event in New York, he was the first to hold it at the New York Stock Exchange. So, with this, President Lee has wrapped up his trip to New York, which focused on diplomacy and economic outreach. He will return home on South Korea's presidential jet on Friday. 송유진, 아리랑뉴스, New York.
The International Monetary Fund raised South Korea's growth forecast for 2025 to 0.9%, but in its annual review, the IMF sent a mixed message. While short-term spending is helpful, urgent structural reforms are still needed to tackle the challenges of a rapidly aging population. Our economics correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Following a 2-week annual consultation with South Korean authorities, the IMF has adjusted its 2025 growth projection for the nation upward by 0.1 percentage point to 0.9%. It attributed the revision to the positive impact of a second supplementary budget, which included giving out spending coupons to all citizens. The forecast for 2026 remains unchanged at 1.8%.
Growth is expected to reach 0.9% in 2025 as domestic demand gradually recovers, supported by more accommodative fiscal and monetary policies, and strong semiconductor external demand offsets decline in other exports.
The IMF described the government's current accommodative fiscal stance as appropriate for now, given that growth is tracking below the country's potential. But the fund warns that this approach is not sustainable. It highlighted South Korea's demographic crisis, one of the world's fastest aging populations, as a critical long-term risk that will exert immense pressure on public finances.
But as you know, with rapid aging in Korea, the spending pressures in the medium to long term are going to rise, which could make debt levels go up substantially over the medium and the near term.
To create fiscal space for future spending, the IMF stressed that reforms to the pension system, mobilizing more revenue, and enhancing spending efficiency are essential. The fund also advised adopting a credible medium-term fiscal anchor to ensure long-term debt sustainability. However, the report cautions that the entire outlook is tilted to the downside.
Prolonged global trade policy uncertainty, intensification of geopolitical tensions, they could weigh on growth and disrupt trade and investments. Apart from that, faster than expected slowdown in major trading partners of Korea could adversely affect exports and hence growth.
The IMF added that revitalizing domestic demand and diversifying Korea's export structure will be essential for more resilient growth. Gradually deleveraging households, reducing labor market rigidities, and addressing demographic challenges could help boost domestic demand. Kim Do-yeon, 아리랑뉴스.
An environmental exhibition kicked off in Seoul on Wednesday, highlighting everything from sustainable lifestyle products to AI-powered recycling technologies. Our financial correspondent Moon Ji-young has the story.
This year's ESG-Eco-friendly exhibition serves as a hub for innovations that aim to transform our waste into a valuable resource. Among these groundbreaking innovations, advanced resource circulation technologies garnered significant attention, particularly in waste sorting. One prominent example is AI-driven waste sorting robots.
Atron is an AI-based waste sorting robot that replaces the manual sorting of recyclable materials. When waste arrives on a conveyor belt, cameras in the vision box identify the type of waste, and robotic arms then sort it accordingly.
Likewise, other resource circulation recovery robots that pick up recyclable waste based on AI and IoT technology were also showcased, drawing considerable attention. The 3-day event, marking its 24th anniversary, opened in Seoul on Wednesday. Hosted by the Ministry of Environment and featuring 236 participating companies and organizations, it highlighted a range of eco-friendly innovations. For instance, the company Terracool demonstrates how it gives new life to waste plastics.
While plastics are formed by polymerization, we utilize depolymerization technology to break them down. We depolymerize polyester-based plastics and fibers, transforming them back into their raw materials, TPA and EG. Simply put, it's like turning discarded bread back into flour and water.
In addition, the Expo showcases a diverse range of eco-friendly products and technologies related to our daily lives. Visitors can find everything from safety shoes made using recycled leather and discarded tires to innovative food tech solutions that leverage AI big data to not only cut down on food waste but also offer data-driven health management. Another impressive innovation includes a product that stores rainwater using a non-powered, electricity-free method, utilizing solar power for versatile applications such as cleaning, environmental use, and road maintenance. Such comprehensive efforts and ingenious solutions offer a glimpse into a greener future for the nation and beyond. 문지영, 아리랑뉴스.
In Seoul this week, diplomacy is taking on a different form, one built on music, dance, and shared traditions. The city is hosting the 7th Public Diplomacy Week, highlighting how culture can bridge borders in ways formal and official negotiations can't. Park Hyun-bin shows us how.
Dancing, music, and shared laughter. What may look like a festival is in fact a stage for diplomacy. Unlike traditional diplomacy that centers on government negotiations, public diplomacy brings citizens themselves to the forefront of culture exchanges. And this week, Seoul has become the very meeting ground as it hosts the 7th Public Diplomacy Week under the theme Connecting the World Together. More than 30 foreign embassies and cultural centers in South Korea are taking part.
The event is more than just seeing different cultures. It allows visitors to take part, which enables a real culture exchange to happen.
At Poland's booth, a lace-making session is in full swing. Visitors carefully weave lace out of thread finer than a strand of hair. Each stitch reveals the intricacy of Polish craft, drawing curious eyes and hands into the process.
I've always liked knitting, so when I heard this was traditional crocheting from a country I didn't know well, I was curious to try. It's more fun than I expected.
Meanwhile, at the Columbia booth, vibrant music fills the air as dancers perform the traditional rhythm, kumbancha. Moments later, a workshop transforms dance into dialogue as visitors learn steps and instruments directly from the performers.
Well, culture and arts can strengthen the diplomacy between the two countries. And today we brought music, but there are several other expressions, particularly in Colombia. So what we are trying to do is have a comprehensive portfolio of cultural expressions and basically literally cross the world to show it to Korea.
By using culture and art as a medium, the event demonstrates the power of public diplomacy that transcends borders. Organizers say it proves that diplomacy is not confined to meeting rooms, but can also flourish in everyday culture exchanges.
Public diplomacy is about two-way exchange between our citizens and foreigners in South Korea, deepening mutual understanding and allowing people to share South Korea with the world while learning from other cultures.
Public Diplomacy Week, which runs until this Saturday, proves that in today's world, culture has the power to act as diplomacy itself. Park Hyun-bin, 아리랑뉴스.
And that brings us to the end of weekly news highlights for the 4th week of September. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.